Yeah. So yeah, let's continue landing back on Earth. And next presentation is by Maija DEMITERE on deep sustainability, grow and make your own.
Hello. We are sitting next to my aquaponics. So this is where we do most of our growing. And I will try to keep my speech short and practical. But we have to start with a tiny bit of an introduction. And I live in a small town. My grandmother was gardening. My other grandmother was a farmer. So an actual farmer with cows and chickens. And my mother is a kind of a very traditional gardener. So we have a greenhouse that we grow in rows and water by hand, and absolutely nothing creative there. And so gardening for me is from the very beginning, from my childhood. It was when we started planting stuff. So weeding was a chore. So washing dishes, making your bed, weeding. So gardening for me is a very, very natural, very large part of my whole life. And so when I was growing up, when I started thinking for myself, I wanted to keep gardening because food is the part of your life that you can have most of control of. So what you eat, what you have inside of you is what you are, who you are. So food and gardening has always been kind of hand in hand. And when I started doing my research, I started with this idea that I could grow all of my food, so I will be completely self-sustainable. And I did try with just normal traditional gardening, grow my own food. I got up to about a bit more than half of my food that I was eating. I was also growing. However, most of it was foraging instead of growing. And you have to understand that gardening, for you to be fully sustainable in a normal life with a job, it is not possible. So after this, my huge experiment when I was slaving over multiple gardens to grow my own food, I realized this is not productive. And from there, I started experimenting how else can you garden, and to try to get to kind of this lazy gardening that you can combine with your normal life. And so that's aquaponics is my way of growing. That's what I have found for myself is most interesting. For my plants is the best solution because it takes very little space, and it is so fun. It's just the most fun you can have because there's no. You can have as much time with aquaponic as you want, and when you are too busy, it's just there. It doesn't really need an everyday care as a normal garden would need. And in our workshop later on, we will go very deeply into the aquaponics, but you can just watch plants grow in the background for now. So when we talk about aquaponics, what I've created this combination of vertical gardening and aquaponics. I'm using like a aquarium. In my previous experiments, I've used many different containers. I'm sticking with the aquarium for now because it looks prettier in pictures. That's about it. I'm a strong believer that if you own a bucket, you can make an aquaponics. So it doesn't need to be a huge, pretty aquarium. it literally can be a bucket of water. And when we talk about aquaponics with fish, I use fish, but the fish is there to make the water dirty. So if you have a dirty water in a bucket, you can go for aquaponics. And I wanted to share a couple of pictures. This one?
No, screen 2.
Like this is a very traditional aquaponic, and you can see aquaponics as these. They are very productive, very full. So a tip from me: don't really look at these as examples, because when you buy a pre-made set, it's gonna be very, very expensive. So just this do-it-yourself approach is the most fun what you can have with your aquaponics. And also, when you see fish in an industrial aquaponics, the fish are there not to have fun, not to have a great life. The fish are there to make the water dirty, and when they are big enough, they become food themselves. So if you're interested in eating fish, then you can also combine growing food with growing your fish. For me, my fish is my friend, and can I stop sharing? I don't see it here. My fish is my friend, so I would never eat my fish. And in the tiny aquaponic that is there, that's the small cube that we made, we grow axolotls in there. So that's also not food. So pick the prettiest fish you can find in your local pet store. Don't take the tropical ones, but just a pretty simple fish. Get a bucket of dirty water and attach a pump to this. And that's the basics of aquaponics. And when you start growing food, you can start changing your what I call mindfulness. So we have this simpler living, downshifting approach to life. And even if we, as normal modern people, we will never go back to just, it's unreasonable to expect that we will start growing our food, and we will stop using internet, we will stop using YouTube and Netflix just because it's bad for the environment. But we can start thinking about it and start to become a bit more conscious of our life. So when you grow your own food, it forces you to start feeling your environment in a more conscious way, because food grows in the tempo that it grows. There's very little you can do to influence your growing time. And this patience that you can start training is, for me, it's I think a skill that is missing in a lot of people nowadays. And so gardening, just a dirty bucket of water, some pretty fish, and then you can start thinking what you want to grow. And you can get to this mindful state of just being more connected to yourself, your life, and your environment. So when you garden, you become like a better person, I feel. And I really want to, I hope that everyone can learn aquaponics. Everyone can start growing their food. Everyone can become a lot more mindful of their lives, and start using the environment that we live in, that we are stuck with, in a more mindful way. So when you watch TV, just accept it. You're watching the TV. Just don't have the TV in the background. So, and when you're using internet, Just do it consciously. Just don't open and close your phone all the time. Have a dedicated time for your emails, dedicated time for your gardening, dedicated time for your TV watching, and then dedicated time where you just spend time with your family and teach your family aquaponics and gardening, of course. And when we grow food, we can also just decide what we want to grow. And I think that's the next step in how to become a better person. And we're coming also back to food. Because don't grow whatever, grow what you want to eat, because it's your food, it's your time, and it's your aquaponics, and just grow what you want to eat. I'm a fan of basil, so I'm growing basil and I'm growing tomatoes because they go perfectly together. And also those are two things that are very easy to grow. And even if you don't grow from seeds, you can find like a local market that can sell you some plants, or also just buy basil plants from a supermarket and just take out the small tiny basil that you don't eat for dinner and put it in a bucket in your tiny pot and put it in in your aquaponics. It's fine if it's not your own. It's fine if it's not perfect. Not everything needs to be absolutely perfect. Just do whatever feels right for you. And when you start accepting that nothing is perfect, everything is fine. Just relax a tiny bit, experiment, and be more conscious of your life, your surroundings, and what you do with your life. And grow basil, it's excellent. And make your own pesto. So you can have a full control of not only your life, your mindful everyday life, but also the recipes that you take from stores. Because when you read a recipe, and if it has more than 5 ingredients, it's too much. It's not worth it. Just stick with recipes under 5 ingredients, because most food can be simpler. What we are being fed by supermarkets, it's not necessary. When you read content for cheese, it shouldn't be more than 2 ingredients, cheese and bacteria. But you can find cheese that has palm oil in it and gelatin. And it's just, at that moment, you should just stop and think, like, what is happening? So making your own recipes with under 5 ingredients, you can extend it also to your supermarket habits. And it might sound frustrating to read all the ingredients of all the food that you want to buy, but you kind of have to do it once. And it just becomes a habit to go for the more natural food in your local supermarket. It is not difficult. You just have to put your mind to it, to read through the shelf once, and then kind of remember it. Or if you definitely think you will not remember it, take a picture of it. It's that simple. We are too careless with our everyday life, and we are too careless with our bodies. And being more mindful and being more just taking a tiny bit of time to develop better habits can better not only your own life, but can also be good for the environment. Because if we are more mindful, we also will start developing better habits, and maybe, hopefully, in a tiny bit of time, we could all just become vegetarians. And it is not an easy thing to accept, but if we would all be vegetarians, we would not have most of our problems that we have now. And I will never stop being proud of being a vegetarian. I will never stop trying to convince people to be vegetarians. But it is an annoying thing to hear, but just even you can apply the mindfulness to this. Like, it's fine if you eat meat, just don't do it out of habit. It's just meat is not a staple food. Vegetables are staple food. So just eat vegetables and be mindful if you want to eat meat, just eat it because it's special, because it's because your best friend made a good recipe, so you're eating meat now. But don't do it out of habit. And when you do choose meat, it's unreasonable to expect everyone to find a local butcher and eat locally sourced meat, because it's just so expensive and it's just a bit dumb. But just be mindful about it. And it's a good habit to develop, the mindfulness of your everyday life. And gardening is your first step. So get an old bucket, fill it up with dirty water, and make an aquaponic. That's my speech, and that's preachy, but I am so sorry.
Maija, I would like the most I really would like to hear from you at the end also is, and everybody probably, these numbers, how much you eat, because you have collected. So if you could share these numbers, how much you can grow and how much you can eat per year.
Yes, well, I'm taking pictures of my food. So this is one summer of pizzas and the same summer of watermelons. I decided to make a small collage. And when I'm talking about how much food I eat, it's about 1 ton of food. It's an insane amount of food, and it all mostly comes from vegetables, so from watermelons, cucumbers, tomatoes, pumpkins, and potatoes. And in this picture, you can see all of my food throughout the year, the base color of my food. So mostly it's green. So for meat eaters, the proportion most likely would be completely different. But for me as a vegetarian that eats a lot of watermelons, so I can spend the summer eating 10 kilograms of watermelon per day. So a ton of food for a vegetarian, that is the amount of food that we can eat. And when I was growing my own food, I grew about half of it, but I already mentioned most of it was foraging. So I calculated also the apples that I didn't particularly invest myself in growing. So a ton of food, and I did get up to about half of it. Now I don't really know how much I could grow in the basil, if I would eat only basil, but I do make a lot of pesto. And to help with this calculation, I made a calculator. It can show you how much tomatoes and potatoes you can grow in your life. So each piece is 1 square meters, and on the screen you can see how many calories on what amount of food you could be growing now if you would start gardening. I chose potatoes and tomatoes because those are really the basic foods for Latvians. So when you read jokes about Latvians about potato eating, well, that really applies to me, definitely.
Okay, and how much percentage of you grow yourself of this, what you eat?
Well, my high point was more than half. Now I'm down to very little. So I would, in summer, I can eat most days what I'm growing myself. But in the winter, it is almost nothing. Then it's just some frozen berries, basil, and herbs I can grow myself. So I would be really, I would say about 30%.
And here is a question from Richard Zani in Šaugnica. Maija, do you grow the watermelon in a greenhouse with aquaponics?
No, I grow my watermelons in just normal soil, but not in normal soil, in a greenhouse, in buckets, or in soil. But I do also grow my own watermelons. Like we can grow watermelons in Latvia, they grow perfectly fine.
In greenhouse?
In a greenhouse, yes.
Okay, so more questions. How about being vegan? Is that better than being a vegetarian in terms of from environmental standpoint?
Well, it's all about sustainability, like a sustainability towards our habits. If you become a vegan and you get frustrated because you can't eat your normal favorite foods anymore, it is not going to be sustainable. So you will just get frustrated, get angry, and after a month you will go back to eating meat, because we as humans, we are everything or nothing. So I really encourage you to not be like that. Don't be perfect. Just be a normal vegetarian. And whenever you feel like, I don't feel like cheese on my pasta today, I will be a vegan for a couple hours now. It's fine. It's just when you are dying to have some cheese, don't see being a vegan as something, as a punishment. It's for environment, of course. If we would all be vegans, it would be perfect. But it is not sustainable for a normal modern person.
Okay, thank you. So there's some more comments from Alessandro Anglani, Meet Italy. Save the planet, more pesto for everyone. It could be great for communication campaign. And from Federico Bergamini, thanks for this reflection. Grow plant helps with connecting with life. Perhaps the most important thing. Okay, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. So we are done now with the keynote panel and already first brainstorms began. So we would like now to invite everybody to go in lunch break. Technically, you just can switch off your microphone and video, but you can stay in the room because we are back in 30 minutes and maybe it's just more convenient not to just log out and back. And in 30 minutes, you will hear like these short presentations by all the partners. So to get a bit more information about who are organizing this project. Okay, so see you in 30 minutes. Okay.
Bye. See you.